Dwayne Yarbrough, community educator within the Office of Attorney General Leslie Rutledge. And I'm here on behalf of General Rutledge, as she had a prior engagement. But I was glad to be here in support of Deshaun Scarborough, who is one of my former students, as a matter of fact. So I'm very proud to see that he's doing so well in his career. And of course, the obvious. It's important that we try and encourage voting. So that's my story.
I'm Tim Humphreys with the State Board of Election Commissioners, and it was very important for me to be here to encourage people to register and get out and vote, and to support the Martin Luther King Commission in their mission.
Talk to me about the young people.
Young people, those that were here from Parkview, all the young people who are 18, about to turn 18, or who otherwise haven't registered to vote yet. It's so important for them to get involved in the political process and to get out and participate.
My name is Barry Jefferson. I'm from Little Rock. I actually live in Jacksonville, and the reason why I'm here, it's so important to be here today, is because this is history. This is an education moment that we have to educate our young people, because we're about to have another historical race in this country, and we have to make sure that we educate young people to get out and go and understand why it's so important for what did our ancestors, what did they fight for. And if we don't continue to educate us, we are going to lose what's important to us right now.
Michael Pacco. I'm chairman of the Libertarian Party of Arkansas, and I'm here because voting is a fundamental right. It's an important privilege and responsibility of all citizens, and I'm here to support this Get Out the Vote effort. I just would encourage all voters to carefully consider the alternatives. Vote your conscience. Don't follow the masses. Don't listen to the media, but vote for who you think is the best candidate, and don't let anyone ever tell you that your vote is wasted.
Talk to me about the youth.
Okay. I think, and this is my personal assessment, but I think that we have to encourage our young people to get involved in every aspect of life, and voting is no exception. They're going to be the next generation up to take over in every facet of life. They're going to be our bankers, our lawyers, our doctors, our teachers. They're going to step up and take over. And we need them to be as informed as we possibly can get them. And that includes in how to assess the political system. We don't want to teach them that the system is broken. We want to teach them that this system could use some improvement.
Present. Arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rang glad, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order. Arms.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Face. Forward. March. Left.
Arkansas Martin Luther King Jr. Commission, and we're gathered here today to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King and the strides that he made this day in history 51 years ago for the Voting Rights Act, and also we're commemorating the 53rd anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech, the dream speech that changed a generation. And we'd like to take this opportunity to thank you. We'd like to recognize our elected officials here today who've come to share with us. The Honorable Ms. Andrea Lena is here. She's the Auditor of the State. All right, let's give her a hand real quick. I would like to recognize Mr. Dwayne Yarborough with the Honorable Attorney General Leslie Rutledge's office. As well as we have Ms. Kimberly Davis representing the office of Honorable Governor Asa Hutchinson. And we're honored to have members of the NAACP representing branches from across the state. They were very instrumental in the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s and all throughout history. And so we'd like to acknowledge them, members of the NAACP. Please stand and wave your hand. All right, this time, once again, we're commemorating the 53rd anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech. On a sunny, sweltering hot day in August of 1963, Dr. King, he presented a soaring speech entitled, I Have a Dream for Human and Voting Rights. And so today, to commemorate that event, we have Mr. Kaylin Smith, a student and also a mentee of the Arkansas Martin Luther King Jr. Commission. Thank you.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American signed the Emancipation Proclamation. But 100 years later, the Negro are still not free. 100 years later, the Negro are still sadly crippled by segregation and the chains of discrimination. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy. Now is the time to make justice a reality to all of God's children. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I say to you today, my friends, that even though we face difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted an American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream that little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and little white girls and sing with new meaning, my country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I see, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to become a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi and every mountainside. And when this happens, when we let freedom ring, we let it ring from every tenement, every hamlet, every state, and every city. We'll be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men, white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Thank you so much for doing a wonderful job. At this time, it is my honor to introduce the visionary leader of the Arkansas Martin Luther King Jr. Commission. Let's give a round of applause for Mr. Deshaun Scar.
Thank you. It is always tough going behind Caleb. Now, how do I top that? Thank you all for coming. I'm so happy to kick off the Go.TV campaign with my friends. You know, be it as it may, you have the Republican Party, you have the Democratic Party, the Libertarian Party. Everyone's here for the same purpose. Under Governor Asa Hutchinson administration, I can truly say that, as Colonel Todd always says, we are one team serving Arkansas. So give yourselves a round of applause. You know, today is a great day. I would like to first start off by saying welcome, and for everyone coming in to observe, there are two historic events involving Dr. King that have changed our course of history. The first event is the 51st anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The Voting Rights Act. My friend Stuart corrected me on that one. As an agency mandated through legislation to teach others about the philosophy of Dr. King, we honor Dr. King by encouraging action and releasing nonpartisan movement to register and educate voters. I am pleased to announce today that we are launching the Go.TV Get Out the Vote campaign, which stands for Get Out the Vote and Celebrate America. Today we are 75 days away from the general election. Through our Get Out the Vote campaign, we want to build collaborative efforts with all of you to increase our low voter response across several demographics. Who are these individuals we want to reach that are unrepresented at the polls? Well, the Arkansas Martin Luther King Jr. Commission will record public service announcements. Today, at our office, will also serve as a conduit to connect with state and local officials as we can assist Arkansans to register to vote. Now, if you're over 18, and all of you who are over 18 are right there, but you're not registered to vote, we want to get you registered to vote today. Today would be the day to get you registered to vote. If you're not registered, get registered. If you're not active, get active. We don't want to lose that passion for voting that they had in 1965. We want to ensure that current registered voters are well informed of voting options, their precincts, who they need to contact. We want them to know that they can vote early. They can vote by mail. According to the report of the U.S. Elections Project, 40% of voters voted early in person or by mail in 2012 election. We want to continue raising awareness about voting options and working in those areas where we see the low voter turnout. Now, coming behind me are your voters of tomorrow. Look at them, right here. Voters of tomorrow are you. And with their help, we will continue to exemplify great leadership throughout the state of Arkansas. And we ask your help to encourage all to get out to vote. Thank you so much.
The Honorable Judge Barry Hyde is going to give us some historical reflections.
You know, I'm afraid that gentleman moved out of the room, but the young man who sang the anthem did a wonderful job, and I wish that you'd join me. I think he has moved out of the room, but I wish you'd join me in giving him another round of applause. He did a great job. Mr. Shelton, I believe, was his name. Let me begin by saying what an honor it is to be here this afternoon and how inspiring it is to see so many engaged citizens and civic leaders in attendance who are committed to supporting Dr. King's message of strength through unity. The Arkansas MLK Commission, founded by a 1993 legislative act, was created to ensure that the legacy and philosophy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would be preserved for future generations. From its humble beginnings in a tucked-away office in the state capitol, the MLK Commission has been undeterred in its mission to promote equality and acceptance as a means to reinforce our sense of community. For the past 2 decades, the Commission has been focused on developing our future leaders by staying actively involved with our youth and citizens. When the MLK Commission was first formed, not only were they woefully understaffed, they were underfunded. That's kind of an Arkansas tradition for stand-ups. Working on a shoestring budget, the Commission focused its efforts on addressing the alarming rise in violent juvenile crime that was crippling our state. Thanks to the vision and the leadership of Executive Director Scarborough, the Commission has been able to expand its mission in order to preempt negative social issues. The proactive implementation of education, leadership, and mentoring programs are a testament to the power of public service. The MLK Commission's commitment to bettering our state through dialogue and civility embodies Dr. King's core philosophy. As we commemorate the 51st anniversary of the Voter Rights Act of 1965, let us not lose sight of how significant this transformative piece of legislation was to our nation's evolution. We must stay vigilant in our efforts to ensure that every citizen has access to the ballot box and that their votes be counted. That was a chance to some applause there. Everything counted. In this very important election year, I'm confident that the MLK Commission will continue to be the vanguard of voter registration and continue Dr. King's work to protect our sacred right to vote. So, Deshaun, thank you for the work of the Commission, your staff, and your leadership.
This time, we're honored to have Reflections in History by Senator Joyce Elliott.
Thank you so much, Deshaun and the Commission. Although I'm here today on behalf of the Democratic Party and the Democratic Black Caucus, I want to applaud you because we do not have many opportunities where we have situations like this where it is a non-political event. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I just want to take a few minutes and just say to you, because I do have to leave early to get to another meeting, but this is really important and I wanted to be here, to just share with you my own personal quick history about the Voting Rights Act. When it was passed, I was not old enough to vote. But as a young kid, I was always curious and interested in politics and always following things that were happening even before I knew the word politics. I used to hear my grandmother, my mother, older black people whispering about voting. I was 13 at the time that this passed. They were whispering about it because they didn't have the luxury of coming into a room and talking the way we're talking right now unless they did it at church. And I remember vividly when this act passed. I didn't know everything it meant, but what I do remember and will never forget, how people started talking out loud, started acting as if they had the right to vote. They didn't have to whisper. I didn't know what a poll tax was, but I heard them whispering about poll taxes, and this meant they didn't have to do it anymore. I have never forgotten that, and how people stood up with more pride. And what I realized as I got older is that they were being brought into our democracy. They were being brought into our democracy that they had been taught about at school, they had been taught to believe in, but they were not allowed to participate in it in a full way. So I hope you will take my memory away from here today and remember what it was like for a 13-year-old girl to see her grandmother stand up straight and say, I'm going to vote. Honor that. And you vote. And you urge everybody else to vote because we take it for granted. I saw people suffer. Every time I vote, I think about them. And I guarantee you, I always do vote. This is no small thing. Be a part of your democracy. Claim it. And the major way you claim it is your vote.
Thank you once again, Senator Elliott. Let's give her another round of applause. And I'm sure hopefully it was to the younger generation to get involved and to get registered and to be active. And with that, we'd like to take this opportunity to recognize our faithful partners in education, the Little Rock Job Corps Center. Thank you so much. They did a wonderful job. And also we'd like to thank Dr. Booth and Parkview Arts and Science Campus.
doing an awesome job. We like to keep the youth involved and definitely use them as stakeholders in our events to give them opportunity to showcase their talents, and their input is also important as we move towards the next generation of young voters and young leaders, right?
You know, when I was asked to speak, I thought, what does an old white boy from Iowa have to offer who never had a challenge to be able to vote? What does he have to offer for a group that always had a challenge to vote? And so maybe that is my purpose for being here today. And I was trying to answer that question, and maybe I could say, well, I have seen how it's supposed to be. Now remember this, we don't have black history, we don't have white history, we have American history. And American history is us, and that is we. And what we do is we. I have a godson by the name of Jaheem, 15 years old. So therefore you know he knows everything. As we are speaking right now, I think he's trying out for the drill team for the ROTC at El Dorado High School. He's in his second week of high school. Every day we've got to fluff up the hair. We've got to polish the shoes. Now the studies, you know, and the game, other than that, you know, it's all secondary. But anyway, Jaheem has taught me two important things. One being that everything you need to know is in your cell phone. And the other night he came home from a little church group he goes to on Wednesday night. I said, how was it, Jaheem? He said, it was great. And I said, well, how do you know? He said, nobody took out their cell phone. So, if I see you taking out your cell phone, I know it's time for me to shut up and get going. Okay, I'm supposed to be talking to you about the history of voting, leading up to the 51st anniversary of Voting Rights Act of 1965. Voting is nothing new. This has been a struggle throughout history, throughout mankind. As you know, the devil is busy 24/7, 365. And so therefore, we are always struggling between those who have it and those who don't. But we as Christians should be about what it is that we're doing right. Okay, the first example of voting rights was the Magna Carta, when in England, the lords, given the king the choice, we're going to kick your rear end out of here, or you can let us participate in the voting. And so that, as Americans, is probably our first connect with voting. However, as I said, the devil was busy 365. When Christopher Columbus came to America, he took back Indian slaves. When the Englishmen came to America, in 1619, they tried to enslave the Indians. The Indians wouldn't play the game. They slept off in the woods at night. So in 1619, we have our first African Americans brought to America to work. Going quickly on this, we go up to the Civil War, at which point the struggle has been for man's freedom. If it hadn't been for Eli Whitney and that old cotton gin, slavery was about to go by the wayside because it wasn't profitable, but okay. So now then, let's talk about, when I was teaching, I talked about the bell-shaped curve. Slavery up to the Civil War and civil rights on the downhill side of that bell-shaped curve. So then, you know, at the end of the Civil War, we had 3 constitutional amendments, and they are 13, 14, and 15, eliminating slavery, citizenship, and voting rights. And that worked okay for a little while, but then we start getting into the Jim Crow era. And there we are in our biggest, hugest struggle, and the devil is at his finest. Okay. Ku Klux Klan. Everybody knows about the KKK? What you might not know is the KKK was against Republicans. Over 1,700 whites were lynched by the KKK because of the power of vote. The struggle has always been over who has the vote, who controls the vote, and who can use the vote. So then, let's jump up to, well, we have a couple other amendments. The 19th Amendment, women. 24th Amendment was what? Poll tax. Poll tax. I'm going to have a pop quiz on poll tax here in just a little bit. So, Attorney General Office, get out your notes. Okay. Let's talk about some things that went on during World War II. Tuskegee Airmen, you know that struggle. What about the WASPs? Do you know who the WASPs were? Women's Army Service Pilots, 1940, 43, 44, 45. Remember this, the struggle for civil rights and voting is a common bond between women and minorities. Okay. Keep that in mind. So what's good for one is good for the other. And that's our history there. Okay, after the WASP and that, and there's several other events, but then we can jump down to 1947, and President Truman desegregated the military, started desegregation of the military. And then we jump up into the 60s. At that point, some of us in here are old enough to remember the happenings of the 60s. Some of those, of course, Bloody Sunday in Selma. We have some right here in Arkansas has actually got a real interesting thing. Central High School, everybody knows. What about Hoxie? Hoxie voluntarily desegregated its public schools without any government interference. So Arkansas is on both sides of this. Then we have the Voting Rights Act of 1957 under Eisenhower, which was fought desperately by many in the House and the Senate, but a very weakened version passed. 1964, the Civil Rights Act, and 1965, the Voting Rights Act, which then set up for a lot of other laws which followed. And under President Nixon, there were more civil rights laws passed than any other presidency. I'm sure my 2 or 3 minutes have gone by here quickly, but now then I want to show you something. In my era, you used visual aids, not PowerPoint. Can you read? You can't vote against prohibition if you don't pay your poll tax. Okay. This was a cruncher here. Now what do you note up at the top? You pay in January. You don't vote till November. If you're a poor working guy, then you don't have 50 cents or $1 or $1.50 to pay for your poll tax. So you put it off. And so therefore you don't get to vote. Should you go to pay your poll tax, you also have to pass a literacy test. Fraud, fraud, fraud. What was a literacy test? How many jelly beans are in a jar? Something worthless, all about keeping certain folks from voting. So, here we are today celebrating the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I would like to ask you this. Now you have your vote. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? Well, in a big turnout, we have 55% of the electors voting. 55% doesn't win you much in the lottery or anything else. I was just watching on TV the other day, they were talking about people who steal votes. And remember this, if they're stealing your vote for whatever it is you like, and that's all right, remember next time that might not be what you like. So then, how people were finding us, people who hadn't voted for a long time, went there and found out they'd been voting all along. Think about that. Civil Rights Act of 1965, 51 years old. What are you going to do with it?
If you look on the back of your program, we have a sample voter literacy test to take. This is from the state of Louisiana from 1965, before the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed. These tactics to discourage voting prompted the historic march in Selma, which, as we know, ended in violence, leading to what is infamously known as Bloody Sunday. Was a 50-mile highway stretch. The route is memorialized today as the Selma to Montgomery Voting Rights Trail and is now designated as a United States National Historic Trail. But the people kept walking. They walked for 50 miles, that highway stretch from Selma to Montgomery. Some people even slept in the fields and strangers' homes along the way because the right to get out to vote was that important. Also, as you came in, we gave you a letter that Dr. King wrote to the New York Times Magazine, and here to recite it is Mr. Rizal Aaron from the Jacksonville NAACP.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the King Commission and my good friend, Director Scarborough. The following document is a letter written by Dr. Martin Luther King in the form of an advertisement. It was published in the New York Times the day that Dr. King was released from the Selma, Alabama jail, and it reads as follows. Dear friends, when the King of Norway participated in awarding the Nobel Peace Prize to me, he surely did not think that in less than 60 days I would be in jail. He and almost all world opinion will be shocked because they are little aware of the unfinished business in the South. By jailing hundreds, the city of Selma, Alabama, has revealed the persisting ugliness of segregation to the nation and the world. When the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed, many decent Americans were lulled into complacency because they thought the day of difficult struggle was over. Why are we in jail? Have you ever been required to answer 100 questions on government, some abstruse even to a political scientist specialist, merely to vote? Have you ever stood in line with over 100 others and after waiting an entire day, seen less than 10 given the qualifying test? This is Selma, Alabama. There are more in jail with me than there are on the voting rolls. This is the USA in 1965. We are in jail simply because we cannot tolerate these conditions for ourselves or our nation. We need the help of all decent Americans. Our organization, SCLC, is not only working in Selma, Alabama, but in dozens of other southern communities. Our self-help projects operate in South Carolina, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, and other states. Our people are eager to work, to sacrifice, to be jailed, but their income, normally meager, is cut off in these crises. Your help can make the difference. Your help can be a message of unity, which the thickest jail walls cannot muffle. With warmest good wishes from all of us, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. And now my simple task is a message to other organizations such as the NAACP. Organizations have to continue to work in the initiatives of voting rights, to continue to educate people, citizens, and voters alike on, number one, their right to vote, and how to comply with some of these new ridiculous legislations that have come out to try and set the Voting Rights Act back prior to 1965. So I encourage you as organizations, the NAACP, the Urban League, the ACLU, and all other organizations to continue to work in the initiative to promote and encourage voter education and voter rights. And for these few words, I thank you.
In 1965, 5 days after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led the March on Selma, President Lyndon Johnson announced his intention to pass the Federal Voting Rights Act to ensure that no federal, state, or local government may in any way impede people from registering to vote or voting because of their race or ethnicity. The Voting Rights Act was signed into law, and according to President Johnson, the law was passed to correct a clear and simple wrong. As the Arkansas Martin Luther King Jr. Commission, we're here to inform voters, and we have Ms. Heather McKim here, and she's going to talk to us about the resources available to young voters and voters across the state.
Thank you. I would like to thank Deshaun and the Commission for allowing me this opportunity to introduce myself and speak for just a couple of minutes about the State Board of Election Commissioners. Some of you may not even know that our agency exists, so I want to let you know. Again, my name is Heather McKim. I recently came on board as the Deputy Director of the State Board, and I am currently serving at the will of the Board as the Interim Director for the time being. The State Board of Election Commissioners is a nonpartisan, independent agency that's made up of a 7-member board. We have 2 appointees from the governor. We have an appointee from the Speaker of the House, one from the Senate Pro Tem, President Pro Tem, one from the Democratic Party, and one from the Republican Party, with Secretary Mark Martin serving as the chair. Some of you may know that each county in the state has at least 3, or has 3 election commissioners. And the state legislature made it mandatory that all election commissioners, county clerks, poll workers receive training. One of our key responsibilities is to conduct training with the election commissioners and with the county clerks. And we also certify 2 poll worker trainers in each county so that they can in turn train their poll workers. We also develop resources to assist candidates and election commissioners and clerks. Such publications we have are Running for Public Office, State Board of Election Commissioners Election Procedures Guide, Poll Worker Training Guides, and many other guides. Those can all be found on our website and downloaded. Our website is arkansas.gov/SBEC. So feel free to go to our website, read more about our mission statement and what we provide. There are all kinds of publications on the website that we do. Another responsibility that we have is we provide certified election monitors around the state in each congressional district. We can send these monitors out to the polls when it is suspected or there have been alleged election law violations. Each election year, we receive requests for monitors from citizens and candidates, and we review each of those requests and approve them if we determine that election laws are possibly being violated in a county or at a specific poll. And finally, we also review and investigate certain types of written complaints of alleged election misconduct to determine if election laws have been violated. And it's important for you to know, all citizens to know, that anyone can request a monitor for a poll site. Anyone can file a complaint with our office if they believe election laws have been violated. That's open to anyone to be able to do that. All of our commissioners and our staff are committed to making sure that everyone's vote counts equally. So I will leave you with this. Your rights are too important not to exercise. So please get out and vote. and know that your vote counts and it matters. We at the State Board of Election Commissioners are committed and passionate about making sure that it does. Thank you.
By the time the marchers reached Montgomery, Alabama from Selma, there were 25,000 people. Today's commemoration is a nonpartisan effort to encourage organizations and individuals in the same spirit of those who participated in the marches of 1965 to encourage others to get out and vote. Everybody say, get out, and vote. All right, at this time we'd like to welcome Mr. Stu Soffer. He is going to encourage us to get out and vote.
I think I want to talk to these wonderful young people rather than you folks here sitting in the pew. Because the future of our country and the future of voting is what you're all about. Now, what is this get out, go out, get out to vote stuff? Why do we need it? Do you all have any idea? I'll give you an example. 2008, the most historic election our country had. Who was elected in 2008 as president? Only 66.5% of registered voters in our country voted. Okay? Now, I do elections on the other side of the globe in places like Azerbaijan, Rajasthan, Kazakhstan, where everybody has to have a photo ID to even get in the door. And yet, in those countries, election day is a festive occasion. People break out in their time, there's food, there's bands, and more people, percentage-wise, come out to vote in those countries than in the United States. So that's why you have to get out to vote. Now, we have an election coming up, and I figure about 68% of those who are registered to vote will come out. 68% of the number of registered voters in Arkansas means you have 114,000 opportunities to get out to vote. So that's what this is all about. Now, I had thought we were going to have a larger audience, and I want to talk to the adults in here, and alleged adults. The gentleman sitting over here is Tim Humphreys. He has been the mainstay of elections in Arkansas for over 20, stand up please, Tim. I'm going to embarrass you. For over 20 years, this man has been the go-to person when somebody, a candidate, a voter, an election official, over 1,000 election officials, had a need to get a question answered. And he is going to leave a tremendous void when he retires next month. And I would have been remiss if I didn't use this opportunity to mention that to him. I'm going to be here for lunch for you young people. You can serve as apprentices on election day. Those of you who are registered to vote can get paid $100 and $105 to work a very long day as a poll worker. It's something you need to think about. The microphone is dead, but being a New Yorker, I don't need a microphone. Thank you. I didn't do my liberty.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. At this time, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
All right, I'd like to welcome Dr. Mike Packout of the Libertarian Party, who's also going to encourage us to get out to vote.
I'd just like to, first of all, thank the Commission for inviting me to this event. I strongly believe that the right to vote is one of our most precious rights, and through that exercise of voting, people can come together to make positive changes in our society. I guess if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be devoting all my volunteer time and energy to something as futile as the Libertarian Party of Arkansas. But I do believe it, and that's why I'm involved in politics. I think it's particularly appropriate the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission sponsors this event, the commemoration of the Voting Rights Act and this Get Out the Vote drive, because, of course, Dr. King spoke eloquently of the importance of the right to vote, on how it's the very essence of our social contract, that without free elections, we don't have legitimacy in government, that elections are what implies the consent of the governed. And he even linked voting to freedom itself. And I want to quote Dr. King here for a brief moment. So long as I do not firmly and irrevocably possess the right to vote, I do not possess myself. I cannot make up my mind. It is made up for me. I cannot live as a democratic citizen, observing the laws that I have helped enact. I can only submit to the edict of others. That makes voting sound pretty darn important. And of course, Dr. King spoke these words in an environment where the right of voting was deliberately withheld, blocked, and hindered for many in clearly unfair and discriminatory ways. And perhaps some of that is still true today, but as some of the other speakers have already mentioned, another problem that we face in our elections today is simply people who have that precious right to vote who choose not to exercise it. And I think one reason that people choose not to vote that I'd like to speak about today is the perception that your vote doesn't really matter anyway, that the political class has somehow already decided who our leaders are going to be and what policies they're going to pursue. An activist in a so-called third party, like myself, has heard quite frequently the argument that a vote for someone other than the winner of an election is a wasted vote. You might hear that if you're a Democrat who lives in a Republican district or vice versa, that it's just a waste of time to go to the polls, that the status quo has already determined who's going to win. And I think it's because we've come to think about politics as a spectator sport. I mean, we have our team colors, our team mascots. We go out and we bet on the winner of the contest through casting our vote. And after all, if you're betting, why would you bet on a loser? But of course, elections are not a spectator sport. Voting is a fundamental right that carries with it a crucial responsibility to cast your vote wisely. And it's your vote. When you cast it, you're letting the politicians know where you stand. And don't let anyone ever tell you there's such a thing as a wasted vote. The only wasted vote is one that is never cast. So, I'd just like to call on you all today, especially the young voters here who are facing their first opportunity to exercise this precious right, to consider your choices and vote and let your voice be heard. And don't just follow the crowds or count on the wisdom of the media and pollsters. Vote your conscience. To quote another historical figure, John Quincy Adams, I'd like to conclude with this. Always vote for principle. Though you may vote alone, you may cherish the sweetest reflection that your vote is never lost.
I've been asked to introduce one gentleman who is on our program today, Mr. Doyle Webb, Chairman of the Republican Party of Arkansas. Regardless of your political leanings, you'll find that Doyle is a friend of the voters of Arkansas and a friend of everyone having an equal opportunity. You know, one of the things that Doyle likes to point out to us is that you study the candidate, but that's temporary. Study the platform of the candidate and the platform of that political party. It's been my pleasure to working with Doyle for the past few years, and a few things I've found out about him is, regardless of where he is, he has relatives there. And they used to live, one of his relatives used to live close to somebody else. But there's one other thing I want to point out about Mr. Webb. We have a little thing going. Come on, Doyle. And whenever we get together, we have to check on who has on the best socks for the day. So,
I'll say this, I've never been quite introduced that way. But I want to talk to you today about corn dogs and tater tots. Okay? We've heard a lot about history, and I love history. I'm a history major. But I love to eat. And so do each one of you, I can tell. Corn dogs and tater tots. I think about that when you go to Sonic. When I go to Sonic, I want to get a corn dog and a tater tot. How many of y'all ever been to Sonic? You know, when you pull up at Sonic, you got to place your order. And then eventually they bring you your order and you can eat. Well, to vote, you have to register 30 days before the election. If you don't place your order 30 days before the election, when you walk into your polling place, you won't get to vote, okay? You won't get your corn dogs and your tater tots on that day. So this is what I want you to do, because my job is to encourage you to increase your voter registration. Every time you drive by a Sonic, I want you to think, am I registered to vote? And if I'm not registered to vote, I need to go see the county clerk or someone that can help me get registered. The people at the Martin Luther King Commission can tell you where to go to get registered. Remember, the chairman of the state Republican Party talked about corn dogs and tater tots today. Thank you, Deshaun.
Thank you. Well, my name is Nathaniel Todd, and I'm a soldier by training. If you're 20 years old or less, would you stand up, please? 20 years old or less, will you stand up, please? Yes. Good. I'd like to stay standing. This get out the vote endeavor is not a suit and tie occupation. You are going to have to roll up your sleeves and get out the vote. Stand up, young people. Stood up, please. I want to thank Mr. Scarborough, my friend, for this opportunity to stand before you today. Mr. Parks, my mentor, Mr. Webb, Ms. McKim, Stu, me and Stu are soldiers together. And I want to point out one of our great American statesmen of our generation, Miss Annie Abrams. Miss Abrams? I see our auditor, Ms. Lee, thank you for being here, and the publisher of Arkansas Talks, Ms. Patricia Ward. Stay standing, young people. Stay standing, young people. I want to thank those from the Job Corps. Thank you for choosing to get an occupation so you can help us pay taxes. Thank you very much. Are there kids from Parkview here? Yay, Parkview. All right, you got homework. I love when Mr. Scarborough asked me to share some thoughts because I get to read this great book. And I've read this book several times. But young people, don't leave high school without reading this book, A Testament of Hope, the essential writings and speeches of Martin Luther King Jr. And when you go back to the library at Parkview, if they don't have 100 copies, call Chairman Webb and he'll put 100 copies in your stool. Okay, young people, you can sit down now. Yes. We lift up our eyes to the hills from which our help comes from. Our help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. In 1957, Dr. Martin Luther King on 17 May penned these words: "Give us the ballot and we will transform the South. Give us the ballot and we will no longer plead to the federal government for passage of an anti-lynching law. We will, by the power of our vote, write the law on the statute books. Give us the ballot, and we will transform the silent misdeeds of bloodthirsty mobs into a calculated good deeds of orderly citizens. Give us the ballot, and we will fill our legislative halls with men of goodwill and send to the sacred halls of Congress men who will not sign a Southern manifesto because of their devotion to the manifesto of justice. Give us the ballot, and we will place judges on the benches of the South who will do justly and love mercy." Young people, today, the American Negro, the African American, depending on your generation, colored Americans, all Americans are free to choose to be who she or he want to be. I had the pleasure of reading that thought. That thought comes from Mr. Muhammad Ali. I happened to be in Louisville, Kentucky on the ceremony of his homecoming, and that was on T-shirts all over that city. We have an opportunity to choose to be who we want to be. I ask that we choose to be self-sufficient as possible, and we ask not what our country can do for us, but what we can do for our country. We choose to vote. And as Martin Luther King said, whatever endeavor you choose to be the Michelangelo of that endeavor. I ask that we choose to ballot. Remember, Mr. Martin Luther King said, give us the ballot. Young people, I'm asking you to choose the ballot. The right to vote, choose the ballot to shape our country into an America that's this shining light on the hill, as Ronald Reagan said, where whether you're Christian, Muslim, Jew, or Gentile, you will find the opportunity to work out your life purpose. Choose the ballot to shape our education system, where every citizen will be able to reach his full potential and life purpose. Choose the ballot, Mr. Hyde, to create an economic free enterprise system that all that want to might find work, self-worth, and contribute to the betterment of mankind. I'm going to take my seat now. I, for one, am very proud to be an Arkansan, an American, and an African American. In this new century in Arkansas, in this new day in Arkansas, I ask that we all vote. And I share with this. Stu, if it took an ID for me to vote, I'd go get 10 of them. We are going to have to get out and we're going to have to vote. Your vote matters. I ask that all eligible voters join in making our Arkansas a better Arkansas for all its citizens. May God keep you, may God bless America, and may God bless Arkansas.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce a lady of great wisdom. She was here in 1968 when then Governor Rockefeller, he hosted the first memorial service April 9th, dedicated to Dr. Martin Luther King to ease the tensions in the country. That first memorial service was hosted here at the state capitol, and this lady who you're about to hear from was there at that service. And so at this time, we're honored to hear from Dr. Annie Abrams.
Arkansas Supreme Court, it was against the law. Arkansas Supreme Court. The people who sat here would have died if they known all y'all was in this room. I remember when we moved from this Arkansas Supreme Court room to the new Supreme Court building. And I remember the first blacks that got a chance to work in it. When I got here today, because I've been so many first, the state troopers knew when he saw me, come on out there and park my car. Because I knew when the first black state trooper got here after we had fought. I remember the first time I came to the governor's office. And I remember who was sitting in there. And I didn't go to the bathroom because I was not going to a bathroom that said for blacks. Because I didn't have no black people. I remember the first that I went to the United States Supreme Court building. Clarence Thomas wasn't even there. I remember the first time that the first black ran for president who was black, Shirley Chisholm. I remember the first time I saw Rosa Parks, Fannie Lou Hamer. It was the first time a black man was running for president, Jesse Jackson. I remember it was 105 in Atlanta when I took a bunch of young folks like y'all for the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act. When I got ready to come here today, I picked up some things, picked up what John Lewis has written. I remember the first time I saw him and where we were. I picked up the book where Montgomery's Chamber of Commerce and everybody else was excited about we were coming to march across the bridge. I remember the person who knew that I had been at so many firsts that they wanted to make sure, since they had called and said, I know you've been to Democratic conventions, I know you've been to inaugurations of the first Southerner since Reconstruction, Bill Clinton. I knew when you were there for Barack Obama's first time that he made a speech at a Democratic convention in Boston that had been arranged politically behind the scenes by John Kerry and Ted Kennedy. I remember the first time that Barack Obama came to this Capitol to help Mike Beebe get reelected. I remember the first time I came over to the legislature, in the House and the Senate, and in committee meetings, when they were using the word Obamacare to try to keep everybody, poor white folks, poor black folks, poor Mexicans, from having health insurance by putting the name, the same thing as when they used to say a word and they would say you get your behind whipped because they say he's playing the dozens. Well, they were playing the dozens every time they said Obamacare. And y'all walked around and didn't have sense enough to know what they were doing. The name of the act was Affordable Care Act. And they took stupid white folks, stupid poor folks, stupid young folks, saying we don't need that Obamacare. Your poor behind is on it now. That's the only issue you have. I was in the Senate when we were getting the third woman on the Supreme Court. Not this one, the Supreme. And I was standing next to John Kerry, who Barack Obama let him be Secretary of State. And he said to Senator Lugar, now we're going to have three of them. I'm about three women on the Supreme Court. I told you I've been to a lot first. First time I stood on the Senate floor and heard a senator talk about, now we got three of them, a Hispanic woman. Another first. I remember when Jim Tucker went to be there for Bill Clinton's inauguration, and a black man who was president pro tem of the Senate, and the law allowed him to be the acting governor when the lieutenant governor was gone, and the lieutenant governor when the governor's gone. And so that's how Dr. Jerry Jewell got to sit over there in the governor's office. That's the first time I got to see a black man sit in that office as the governor. The first time, because I knew the law. When Dr. Jewell died, I made sure that he was going to lie in state in this state capital because that was a right for governors to have. And I stood guard. Wait a minute, you gonna let no. I stood guard because with no soldier standing over there beside him, even though he'd been to the army just like you. So I stood guard with his body while he lay in state. But I also remember the first time that a woman that couldn't come up in this capital named Daisy Bates, that I knew she was entitled if you knew the law. And so I made sure that she laid in state at this capital. When they had shot her in the house where she lived for the Little Rock 9. And so that morning, when she was lying in state at this capital where she couldn't come and couldn't use them bathrooms when she was a young woman, because it was black or white, I told her, oh girl, I'm going to go to the White House because Bill Clinton is going to honor the Little Rock 9. The Little Rock 9 should be in Little Rock where you are going to have your funeral. But that's okay. I'm going on and I'll represent you when I look up at the Little Rock 9 in the White House. I've been laughing. Some of y'all know I do laugh. It's a wonder they ain't changed the White House to the Black House since Barack been there. And thought about that. It's almost so crazy they have changed the name of it and call it the Black House. Go check and see why it was called the White House. The thing that I agreed to come and do is what I promised Sean I would do, and that is to tell you something that you probably won't hear nowhere else. Don't you go vote if you're not going to cast an informed vote. They've been telling you, go to the polls, get ready. Don't you go. Because some of y'all are so stupid, you'll vote for the wrong one, the one that put your butt in jail. When you don't know what you're voting for, you can vote for your own demise. Demise is a word for die. Yes. You can vote for your own death. Political death, financial death, emotional death, and yes, physical death. There's some folks that's going to be on the ballot, and there are going to be some amendments on the ballot. Don't you go if you don't know what that amendment, and you don't know nothing about that candidate. You better study their genealogy. You better know is his grandpapa the head of the Ku Klux Klan just because he's grinning. Say it. So don't y'all go vote if you haven't done your homework. It's going to be the longest ballot we've had in a long, long time. And some of y'all got an attention about that long. And particularly you young folks. Because you can't vote on your cell phone yet. So you need to be prepared to stay a long time, but you can't stay for so long because we've got a law to tell you how long you can stay in that booth. Study every candidate. Whenever I go, I know what his grandpa was, whether he was a superintendent of a school that they burned down. I know what his mama did, and she was the first in the county clerk, and I can't now find no genealogical references of black folks in that county courthouse? Yes, you was first. But what happened to our records? So I wore the dress today that I bought when I was in Ghana. The place where more slaves were sold than any place in the continent of Africa. And the person who I bought it from, I was in the hotel. And they were young folks like you who were entrepreneurs. And I looked out my window and there they were out there in boats. Entrepreneurs could roll this up with a rubber band in plastic and throw it up there in my window so I could buy it. That's how creative they were in Africa. First time that I went to the castle, where upstairs the priests were up there. But down there, on this side, was black naked men and women on this side. And the priest could look down there and pick out whichever one he wanted. Homosexuality, they knew. It's been around a long time. And so I laid down on that floor to see how it felt to be laying there knowing that you are going to be sold in America and be a slave. So when the first time I went and they were celebrating the 13th Amendment in this country, and I got there because French Hill said he remembered how many firsts I had done, and as a result of that, he said if anybody need to be in Washington, D.C. when we celebrate the 13th Amendment's ratification, you deserve to be there. That's how I was there. The next time, I remember when Michelle came to UAPB. I remember because Mr. Abrams' last name was Abrams, started with an A. I was the first one to get to be there and tell Michelle howdy and welcome to Arkansas. So you see, these firsts don't do nothing but make me madder and madder. Because I know so many of y'all don't understand how many firsts we got. But when you're the first, when you were first at Hoxie, when they integrated that, or whether you want to look like nines. I'm mad at them because I'm over here fighting, trying to get historic representation of buildings. And the Little Rock Nine, they are here helping me have the houses that they lived in, and Daisy Bates' house, and she entertained them and protected them. I want them on the National Register of Historic Places. But they ain't fighting for it, but I am. Whether they got sense enough to know that they deserve to be fighting. So whenever you see me, I'm thinking about who was first. So who's going to be first on your ballot? Whether it's at the school board level, county judge, you better know who they are. I know who you are. She does whether you are running. I don't want nobody running to represent me that I know you don't know what you're going up there for. The color of your skin don't make you smart. The sex you have on your birth certificate doesn't make you smart. So don't go vote if you don't know how the initiated act's going to impact your grandchildren. Laws are in there for a long time. And so that's my message. I told you I was going to say it. I don't care how mad you are about how long we stand up here, but they ain't mad. So you don't have to stand around. If you're supposed to be out here taking lunch and go on. But the bottom line is, don't go vote unless you are an informed voter knowing the impact of what it's going to do for you, and for you. It may be voting against you. And so that's what I came for. So if I didn't do it, you don't owe me nothing.
Everybody say, get out the vote. Get out the vote. Okay, at this time we're honored to hear from Mr. Leonard Boyle. He is going to encourage us to get out to vote.
All right. You know, Ms. Abrams, it's a tough act to follow. Besides that, she knows how to steal folks' thunder. I want to thank Director Scarborough. You know, our relationship goes back quite a ways. I believe that's back when Moby Dick was a minnow, right? Miss Abrams and I go back even further, so I guess that's when they authored The Old Man in the Sea. Okay. But, you know, I can remember a lot of the things that a lot of the people in here talked about today. That reception with Governor Rocco, my grandfather on my mother's side worked here in this state capitol during that event. Dr. Jerry Jewell and the things that happened leading up to him moving to the seat of the governor, even on that temporary basis. I can remember when, in 1965, when the Voter Rights Act was passed, I was 5 years old actually, but my family was so embedded in exercising your right to vote, but they were also very proactive in teaching us to research the candidates, research the issues, to ensure that you know what you are doing. When you get inside, back then there was a little curtain that you would pull around and you would flip these little levers and then you do this little lever like this and that's where your vote was cast. I don't remember the poll tax part of it. I'm not old enough to do that. But at the same time, I've read and I've heard stories from my elders about all those things. I've had lots of mentors who helped to shape me into what I am today. And I'm proud of that. At the same time, my message to the young people here today I'm going to echo what Ms. Abrams said. Don't just register to vote. Don't just go and vote just because you register. Educate yourselves on the candidates. Educate yourselves on the initiatives on the ballot. Have a good understanding of what you're doing when you get to that booth. At the same time, we look at things as election commissioners and how elections are affected by different things. Excuse me. You know, we have to have poll workers to work in the polls, and we pay those poll workers. Those are not voluntary positions. I think the highest paid person in the precinct is like $150 for that one day, and the lowest paid person is like $120, $125 for that day. But we also looked at the gaps in how we were losing poll workers. And so the question that Pulaski County's Election Commission had was, how do we stem that tide? What can we do from our positions here as commissioners to ensure not only that we have fair and accessible elections, but how do we staff those elections? It was normally your elderly population that was staffing your precincts because voting was so important to them. So as we butted our heads, trying to come up with ways to stem that tide, there were two that was so simple as to how we can approach staffing our precincts in Pulaski County. And so we're going to be the pilots of the program. The first area we looked at is to get people with disabilities more involved in the political process by having them to not only register to vote, but to actively become co-workers. And the second was the young people, because you all are our future. You all are not only going to be paying the taxes that help take care of us during retirement. You all are going to be the ones in charge of everything that goes on, and sometimes that can be a scary thought. But at the same time, I have to echo Mr. Justin Dart, who's the grandfather of the ADA, when he said, get involved in politics as if your life depended on it, because it does.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Boyle. We'd like to thank everyone for coming out today. Everybody say, get out to vote.
Get out to vote.
All right, and the number to call if you need any information is 888-290-KING. Okay, we want to connect you with the Secretary of State's office, with Ms. Heather here, or Mr. Boyle, or any of our resources to register people to vote, to host campaigns, to get information out. So just call us and we'll get you connected. In the meantime, we thank you again for coming, and join us in room 207 for a reception. Thank you.
I am the Executive Director of Arkansas Governor's Commission on People with Disabilities, as well as elected as a Pulaski County Election Commissioner. It's important for me to be here today because voting is an issue that all of us need to be concerned with. We need to not only register to vote, but we need to also understand and research the candidates who are on the ballot, as well as any ballot initiatives that are there. It's very important for our voters to educate themselves. But that's why I'm here.
My name is Lita Brown. I am from Little Rock Job Corps. I am the business community liaison. I'm also SGA advisor, and I want to bring my students here and get them starting, registering to voting, and telling them how important it is for their vote and that their vote counts. So I wanted them to come out and see an experience like this.
Well, I'm chairman of the state Republican Party. It's important for me to be here because it's important for everyone to be registered to vote, and for everyone to be informed, and for them to get out and cast a ballot. And anything that we can do to encourage that or educate people, that's what's important to us. America works when people vote.
Talk to the young people right now.
Well, you know, as I said in my speech, anytime you drive by Sonic and you go into Sonic and you place an order and you get what you want, well, you've got to go register to vote 30 days before the election so that you can vote on election day. You've got to place your order so that you can get something in return. Don't be lazy. Get out and vote. Get out and vote. Your vote does make a difference.
My name is Eartha Dobbins. I live in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Community is my passion. Young people is my passion. And to pass a legacy on of voting is what I do. And I encourage others to do. I am a member of the North Little Rock branch of the NAACP. A strong branch with the leadership of our president, Mrs. Deborah Rose. We'll continue on. And voting is what we do. We set up voter drives. We encourage people to vote. We have a friendly atmosphere in the community. People know us, and they don't mind calling upon us. We are involved in schools, involved in the civic part of the community, involved in churches. Make sure the churches have a part. It's very important. The whole person. We're trying to reach them. And I'm a family first person. My family needs to be involved. The younger the children are, better. because they can be molded, knowing that it is important to vote. What is voting? Explain that to them. Let them know what a sacrifice has been made for folks to vote. Carry them to the polls with you. Let them see others voting, knowing that they have a right, and do not take it lightly. It's a privilege. It's a great decision.
Well, it is important that I be here today, mainly to get out to vote, but I've been a part of the community, so being a member of the NAACP since I was 16 years of age. That was something that was very specified in my home coming up. I am a self-advocate for individuals with disabilities. I am also an advocate for civil rights. I think it is very important to get our young people involved. The younger, I think, it would be better, because you have those young minds flourishing, and they can become active in the community, and we can pretty much pass the torch on to them. I am now 47 years old, but like I said, I have been an active member in my community since the age of 16 years old. So I think it is very vital to get our young people, 16 and older, but sometimes even younger than that, because they have to know their history. They have to know that these things are important and so why these laws were passed, so they can have a better future of tomorrow.
I'm a commissioner on the Martin Luther King Commission, and I'm a strong believer in get out the vote and the two-party system. And as Ms. Abrams says, being an informed voter.
Why is it important for young people to be here today?
Because they are the ones who's going to, they are the future. And if we don't have informed, active voters, then our country can't survive.
I am Christopher Hamilton. I am representing the Arkansas Martin Luther King Commission. It is just great to know we have an organization that is interested in having our people, our black people, to make sure they get out and vote. It's very important that a lot of people fought, bled, died for us to have this right that we have today. So it is great that we have this going on, have the city children here to make sure that they know how important it is for them to get out and vote.